principle of any kind, because all religion operates on the maritime admiralty. And this is why when a judge walks into the court, he's operating on the maritime admiralty, the law of water, and that's why everyone rises when the judge walks in. The same reason why when the Catholic priest walks onto the altar in the church, everyone rises. It's the symbolism of maritime admiralty or the law of water. Now, that's a very big subject. I'm just giving you some basic concepts.
Absolutely. And I'm so glad that you made the distinction between the law of the land and the law of the sea, because I think that today most Americans are, well, they've fallen under the misconception that the law of the land in the United States is the Constitution.
Yeah.
When in actuality, there's quite a distinction between our Constitution and the Maritime Admiralty law, the statutory law that we really are subjected to for 99% of the course of our interaction with government. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say 100%, because maritime admiralty is the law of water. That's why when you go into a court, you will see the fence and a gate. And the people sit out on one side of the fence, and on the inside is the judge and the court. And so there's a gate that you have to pass to go into before the judge. Well, that gate is referred to as a water gate. It's a gate like is used in the canal zone. When a ship goes through the Panama Canal, they have to open the gates, the water gates. And so when your name is called in a court, you walk up and you put your hand on the gate and you open it up to go in. But what you don't realize is that you are on one side of the fence because you are under, the people sitting in the audience are under the law of the land. But once you put your hand on that gate and open the floodgate, you are now opening yourself up to, you yourself put your hand on the gate, so you are opening yourself up to the law of maritime admiralty, the law of water. So now we say that you are now in hot water.
Yes.
And someone's going to have to bail you out. Like any boat that's taking on too much water, has got too much water, has to be bailed out. And because your body is 90% water and you're a biological battery and you're in hot water, if you can't get bailed out, then you're going to be put inside of a battery or a cell. And so once you begin to understand how your body, your electrical body, and the 90% water of your body is part of the system of maritime admiralty, and how you are put into a cell, how your body, your very flesh and blood body, which most Americans have never heard, your very flesh and blood body is on the New York Stock Exchange. Your body is being bought and sold on the New York Stock Exchange. Now, I realize that when I start talking about a subject that I've studied for 50 years, while most people have never even heard of this for 50 minutes, we're going to have a problem with something called cognitive dissonance.
Yes, sir.
Meaning, when you begin to hear something you've never heard before, obviously that subject and that person telling you must be crazy because you've never heard it before.
Right.
Well, that's ludicrous on the face of it to think that if you haven't heard something, then it must be bull, must be crazy because you've never heard of it. But I can guarantee you that I don't care how smart you are, there's a lot of things you haven't heard.
Quite right. Quite right. And in fact, for anyone who's having a bit of cognitive dissonance just now, I would encourage you to ask yourself, how many checks have you written in the course of your lifetime, and did you realize that you had not read the fine print even one time until just now?
Yeah, you're right.
And along this course of our conversation, Mr. Maxwell, maritime admiralty law, I think a lot of Americans struggle to understand just how pervasively present the application of maritime admiralty law is in our, not just our court system, but in almost every form that we have to engage with government or law enforcement in almost any capacity. And what I'd what I had hoped to do is maybe offer an example from my research, Mr. Maxwell, and you can tell me if your research has corroborated this. But the course of maritime admiralty law making itself most present really dates back to the Civil War period, when the South seceded from the Union. Their representatives, their members of Congress, left Congress, creating a breach, creating a constitutional crisis, because from that moment forward there was no ability to hold quorum, to have a constitutionally legal vote. And at that time, Abraham Lincoln initiated emergency powers, including martial law. Am I on the right track?
That's right. Mm-hmm.
And yep. I offer an example for people to consider today. When you made the example and described to us the courtroom and the gate, thinking of some of my listeners from the Midwest, they can relate to how they had no access to casino gambling until the laws were bent to allow riverboat gambling. Mm-hmm. And at many of the locations in the Midwest, you'll find that the riverboat is tethered physically to the shore, but you have to cross the boundary onto the water in order to make that legal.
Yeah, and it was exactly right.
And it was in the period of Lincoln's imposed martial law that those first military tribunals, they took that step, tethered the ship to the sea, and people facing whatever the legal matter was would cross onto the ship, but then they've brought that into the courtroom with the symbolic gate, as you described.
That's right. That's right. And that's why when you're in a court, when you go to testify, you're sitting on the dock.
That's right.
And and you're in hot water. And so again, maritime admiralty is the law of water or the law of money. It's called the law of the sea, but the law of the sea is the law of money. And so that's why there's water all over the earth. And so the idea being is that you can get a credit card from a bank credit card in South Africa and go to China for a vacation and live very well there with your credit card. Why? Because the credit card and money has nothing to do with the culture of the people, with the country. It has to do with banks. And where do you find banks? Banks are on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. And what does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the currency, because your money is the liquid asset. It's a current.
Yes.
It's the ebb and flow of water. And so money goes through your hands like water. No, money is water. Money is the liquid asset, the cash flow. And once you understand that money is associated with water all over the earth, and therefore when you were born, you came out of your mother's water. So even though you may not understand this, you may never have heard this, this is the law. The law says that when you are born, you came out of your mother's water. Her water broke. Therefore, you are considered by law a maritime admiralty product. This is why all ships are female. You will always hear a captain talking of his ship. Rocket ships, sailing ships, any kind of a ship. All ships are female. You will always hear the captain saying, she's a good ship, or she's seaworthy. Why are ships she? Why are they female? By law. It's because all ships deliver a product. That's why ships are on the sea. Even the cruise ships. It's a business. People are paying large sums of money to go on cruises. So the cruise ships and the merchant ships, all of the ships of the world are business. It's a business. And so that's why if you buy something from a company, they will ship it to you. And this is why you have, ultimately, everything you do is dealing with money and business and maritime admiralty, so therefore you will get your product shipped to you. This is why you have a citizenship, scholarship, courtship, there's all, friendship, all kinds of the word ship appears in everything.
Fascinating.
So once you understand that the whole world of business is based on water, it's based on money. And when a ship pulls into harbor, because all ships are where she parks at, and you even hear longshoresmen and people working the docks will talk about the ships as she. Well, she parks at what is called her berth. berth. A berth is where the ship sits.
Right.
And so, therefore, she is in her berth. And every item on that ship, if it's $800 million worth of Toyotas or TVs or radios, it doesn't matter. Whatever it is that the ship is bringing in, that's business, that's money, that's commerce. And therefore, she is delivering a product, like you. Your mother delivered a product. She was in the delivery room.
Interesting.
She was in labor. She was delivering a product. And if you look at your original birth certificate, where your parents signed does not say mother or father or parent. Where your parents signed says informant. And look at the left-hand bottom of your birth certificate, and it will say this certificate is the property of the Department of Commerce. All birth certificates go to the Department of Commerce. Why? Because you are a Maritime admiralty product. You are a human resource. Your body is on the New York Stock Exchange. You don't think so? Do some homework and you will find your flesh and blood body is being bought and sold on the New York Stock Exchange. How does that work? Very simple. You have to understand how the world really works, how banks actually work. Banks do not loan money. No bank has ever loaned money, ever, to anyone. So when you say that you're going to borrow money from the bank, you can't borrow money from the bank. Use your head and think about it. If I go in and put $100,000 into an account of my cash into a bank account, and you come in 2 days later to buy a boat that costs $100,000, and they give you my money, no thank you. They're not giving you my money for you to go buy your boat. And if you don't pay that money back, I've lost my money. No thank you. It don't work that way. Well, then if you go in to buy a house or buy a car or whatever, and the bank finances you, did they give you any money? Because if they gave you money, it gave you the money of people who put their money in the bank. And the laws of banking say you cannot give somebody else's money away. So how does a bank finance your car? How does the bank finance your home? Well, for sure, they're not giving you any money. That's for sure. So you need to understand that going out the gate. Banks do not loan money ever.
And I think that most folks don't realize that the real reason for that, the accuracy of your statement, is that we don't have money, we have debt. We have instruments of debt.
That's different. I mean, that's the classic. Yeah, let me quickly go through that real quick. Let's say, to show you how this system works, in fact, lawfully, you cannot pay a bill in America. You cannot pay a bill in Canada. In the Western civilization, it is impossible to pay a bill. So when you hear someone saying, well, I have this bill to pay, well, that's just a word that we use. But in fact, lawfully, you will find out in a court you cannot pay a bill. You can discharge a debt, but you cannot pay a bill. Let me give you an example. Suppose you're a painting contractor and I hire you to paint my room, to paint my office, and you give me an estimate of $100. I agree